Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is Chapter 4 from the Strategic Management model at the Hashemite University's Management Department. I recall that we have earlier started with discussing Chapter 4, which is relevant to environmental scanning and industry analysis. We have covered almost all these learning objectives. I'll prefer to start from where we have finished in our last class. So this is a quick recap to make you recall what the topics were that we were discussing. We did discuss the environmental scanning. What is environmental scanning? Its definition. We also discussed the natural environment, which our raw materials come from as organizations. We have also discussed the societal environment, which is composed of the economic, technological, political, legal, and socio-cultural aspects. The task environment, which is the environment that is directly connected to our organizations, like the government, local communities, suppliers, competitors, customers, creditors, unions, and all relevant parties. We did talk about the industry analysis. I recall we did utilize the SWOT analysis as a tool to analyze the organization's environment. We talked a little bit about the STEEP analysis. STEEP stands for social, cultural, technological, economic, ecological, and political legal forces that also impacts the strategies of organizations. These are the factors that may go under each of these forces. They are very numerous. These are some of them. However, as we have discussed earlier, that when you conduct a SWOT analysis or STEEP analysis for your organization, you do not have to go through all these factors. You will go through the factors that directly impacts your organization. We also discussed about the US generations, the baby boomers, Generation X, and how each generation has its preferences, purchasing behavior. We also discussed the current socio-cultural trends, increasing environmental awareness, growing health consciousness, expanding cereal markets, and impact of millennials. Also regarding the social cultural trends, we discussed the declining mass market, changing pace and location of life, household composition, increasing diversity of workforce and markets. We also had a discussion relevant to these technological breakthroughs. As a matter of fact, these are considered to be a methodology of life. They are no longer technological breakthroughs. These are relevant to the categories of risks that an organization may encounter. We talked about also the scanning of the external environment. We utilized the 5 forces model of Porter, relevant the intensity of competition. These forces are the rivalry among existing firms and potential entrants with their entry barriers. We talked about the substitutes and the bargaining powers of buyers and suppliers. We had also discussed that there's a sixth force that Porter did not include in his model at the beginning, where other scholars highlighted the impact and the power of other stakeholders, how it may impact the intensity of competition. So these slides, as you can see, discusses and explains more about each of these forces that we have discussed in our class. These are the barriers of entry, possible barriers of entry. This is rivalry among existing firms. Number of competitors and how the number of competitors, the increased number of competitors, of course, logically increases the competition, and how to understand the substitute product, the bargaining power of buyers, and how the bargaining power is influenced by the number of suppliers. This is the bargaining power of suppliers, and as we have discussed, you have to understand the supply chain, and you need to understand that almost each buyer is a supplier, and each supplier is a buyer as well, relevant to where you stand within the supply chain. And this is the sixth power, the stakeholders, the government, local communities, creditors, trade associations. As you can see, this force Porter did not include in his model at the beginning, where later on it was added. This is how the organizations start and how the industry evolution is. You can categorize them within the fragmented industry, where no firm has large market share and each firm only serves a small piece of the total market, while consolidated industry is dominated by a few large companies, and each company is fighting for its market share. This is relevant to international businesses and international industries. This text, this literature divides them or categorizes them within the multi-domestic industries, global industries, and regional industries. We have also discussed the differences, and this continuum of the international industries is, if you want to consider whether an organization or an industry is multi-domestic or global, or the extent of this industry being multi-domestic or closer to being a multi-domestic or a global industry, you can utilize this continuum. We had a practical case study example regarding strategic group and how organizations utilize this tool to categorize and group their competitors, to understand and work within the strategies, and to better compete. This is an example that our textbook utilized, relevant to fast food, while I recall that we did an exercise relevant to the auto industry. This is regarding to strategic types, and each organization's strategies relevant to the competition. We have the defenders, prospectors, analyzers, and reactors. Also the hyper competition and how almost every industry lives now within the hyper competition, which requires creating faster product life cycles, creating new competitive advantages to better compete with the rivals. Otherwise, you will be out of the market. This is the key success factors and the industry matrix. Now, I recall that in our last class we were discussing the competitive intelligence. We try to understand what is a competitive intelligence and the difference between competitive intelligence and business intelligence. Also, how can we differentiate business or competitive intelligence from espionage? The sources of competitive intelligence could be the information broker, internet, industrial espionage, investigatory services. However, relevant to the third point, industrial espionage, we cannot consider industrial espionage as a formal competitive intelligence source of data. This is illegal. Now we get to the forecasting techniques. You have, if you want to conduct a strategy or formulate a strategy, you need to forecast the future. You have multi ways of useful forecasting techniques. As you can see here, it's extrapolation, brainstorming, expert opinions, Delphi technique, statistical modeling, prediction, markets, cross-impact analysis. Each of these forecasting techniques are explained in detail within your text. However, for example, if we talk about expert opinions, you can ask experts from a certain domain to write reports for you, what the future can be. They may utilize the available info sources to forecast the future for you. And based on this forecast, you can formulate a strategy for your organization. I think this is the end of the chapter. And how can you conduct, for example, SWOT analysis? But the added value here is they have added within this text weights and ratings for each of the, for example, opportunities or threats that you expect to exist within your domain. So this adds some kind of statistical modeling to your industry analysis. This will be the end of the chapter. I will be providing a new clip with the new chapter. Thank you very much.